During those 10 years, one of the programme's most popular features has been its theme music, the evocative strains of The Chain, written and played by these world-famous people, Fleetwood Mac. Now, this is the first time in 10 years that Fleetwood Mac have been back to the UK, so it's my pleasure to thank them on behalf of Grand Prix fans everywhere for all the enjoyment they've given us and for some wonderful music. Everybody's travelling. Fleetwood Mac are off on the European leg of their world tour, and the Grand Prix teams are here in Mexico for round 4 of the championship and the first of a 3-race series on the other side of the Atlantic. The most important thing about Mexico is that the circuit is 7,000 feet above sea level, which gives the turbo cars an even bigger power advantage. The circuit's bumpy, it's hot, and it's going to be a very grueling race. With 2 wins and a second from 3 races, Alain Prost's already looking good for a 3rd World Championship in a McLaren that's the class of the field. But with Berger second and Ferrari a lot more competitive here, Senna is desperate for points to improve on his 3rd place ahead of Piquet's Lotus, Alboreto's Ferrari and Derek Warwick's Arrows. In the Constructors Championship, McLaren, with Prost and Senna and a 13-point lead over Ferrari, look unbeatable. Amazingly, Frenchman Philippe Alliot will be driving in the Mexican Grand Prix in spite of this horrific accident when, in yesterday's practice, he lost his Lola Ford on the notorious 160 miles an hour pits turn. Incredibly, Philippe, only just recovered from a similar crash at Monaco, was unhurt. And to an inquiring Nigel Mansell, who went off in exactly the same place last year, it was thumbs up from Philippe. There, in pole position, the imperturbable, we thought, Ayrton Senna, until Monaco 2 weeks ago, when he amazed everybody by making a mistake in the closing stages of the race with a very secure lead and completely blew it. That is Alain Prost, the world champion of 1985 and 1986, second on the grid, leading the championship this year. 3rd is Gerhard Berger, but much closer in terms of time to the McLarens than he has been in the past. There is Nelson Piquet, 4th position on the grid, much better than he was at Monaco. After an aborted first start, the Mexico Grand Prix is hopefully now going to get away with Philippe Alliot on the back rank of the grid after having had trouble earlier on. Senna in pole position on the left. Prost in 2nd position on the right. It's going to be a 67-lap race now, reduced from the originally intended 68 laps. It's hot, it's humid, it's a very demanding track, especially that corner in the background. And now it's go again, and we've got him away cleanly this time. Senna leads, and Piquet comes screaming up. Alliot gets away in the background, and Prost goes through and takes the lead. Piquet goes up into 2nd place. Senna goes down to 3rd position, and Piquet is higher up now than he has been this season as he goes into turn 1.
And there seemed to be a bit of bumping and boring going on round towards the back of the field then at the start. But I'm going to have to wait for a replay to sort that out. And we think that Sala was involved in that bit, and there were yellow flags copiously. So Prost made a very good start, got the run down to the first corner, and Piquet showing a bit of aggression there, and that's got him into second place.
And Nakajima is ahead of both the Ferraris. He's got ahead of Gerhard Berger, who was third on the grid. He's got ahead of Alboreto, who was fifth on the grid. Prost is already building up a lead. Piquet is second. Senna is in third position. Nakajima is fourth. And then the two Ferraris. And it's an amazing achievement by Satoru Nakajima. This is certainly the highest that he's been in a Grand Prix at this stage of a race. And already Alain Prost has got the hammer well and truly down, and Ayrton Senna goes for second position and takes it from Piquet third, Nakajima fourth, then the two Ferraris, then it's Eddie Cheever and Derek Warwick and the two Benettons.
And Prost will be disappointed now. He's got a chance to look in his mirrors, and he'll see straight away that Ayrton Senna has slipped by Piquet going into the quick one onto the to complete the lap, and he might have just been hoping, although he certainly won't have banked on it, to have a few laps respite in which to build up a bit of a cushion to give Senna something to shoot at. But the two McLarens back in the positions to which we've already become accustomed this season, and their dominance may not be quite as great here as it has been. Nakajima having an absolutely storming race.
And you saw Philippe Alliot go into the pits. The leading Ferrari in fifth place is that of Gerhard Berger, and Alain Prost is showing that he is not to be overlooked. He is a long, long way from being yesterday's man, which some people thought he was in comparison with Senna, notwithstanding the fact that he's leading the World Championship. 2 laps completed. Alain Prost leads. Senna is second. We have yet to see this season a real battle between Prost and Senna on the track. Well, Alain Prost is increasing his lead, 3.3 seconds, lap 5 out of 67. Prost leads, there he is. Senna is in second position. Nelson Piquet is third. Gerhard Berger is up to fourth. Down to fifth has gone Nakajima, ahead of Michele Alboreto, who is sixth. In seventh position, it is Eddie Cheever, and in eighth place, it's Derek Warwick. So, very much a turbo race in these early stages, and no retirements. Things are going well in Mexico, and you can see how bumpy the course is. You can see too that Senna is not at the moment carving out, but in the background you can see that Berger is closing right up on Piquet, and there Alboreto is ahead of Nakajima, and Berger is really forcing for third position now. Race order: Alain Prost, Senna. This is the battle for third position between the Lotus-Honda of world champion Nelson Piquet and the Ferrari of Gerhard Berger, second in the World Championship, and Alboreto, who has got a lot to prove between himself and Berger, has got ahead of Nakajima and up into fourth place.
And Berger certainly took that corner very well. He was a lot quicker coming out of it than Piquet, trying to get a slingshot, but still Piquet's power. But because of doing the corner well, and that was a perfect illustration, thank you Gerhard, of exactly what I was explaining. He held back that time, didn't try and pass him into the corner, held back, took the full line, and he was going a good 5 miles an hour quicker than Nelson Piquet when they exited the turn, which allowed him at least to stay very, very close to Piquet on the straight. And that was an outstandingly good piece of driving by Berger. He thought it out, worked it out from the 2 previous laps, and theory is one thing, but he executed the practice brilliantly.
And you're looking at race leader Alain Prost, who has already won in Brazil and Monaco and finished second in San Marino to lead the World Championship, leading here in Mexico on lap 10.
As they crossed the line just now, and there's the battle of the atmosphere cars, and look at that for a good gaggle and a good battle. And that, I'm glad to say, hopefully is a foretaste of Grand Prix racing next year. And what a welcome sight that'll be when we get a gaggle of cars like that in a battle. The McLarens look jolly nice. That's Nigel Mansell in 17th place, and the Williams team have really had a disastrous practice session. The suspension on their cars, which of course is very high-tech and fairly experimental, has objected to the bumps and caused them lots of trouble, and it's not an easily fixable thing.
It is lap 14 that they're on now, 67 lap race, long way to go. Prost unusually is leading at this stage of the race because very often his tactics are to sit back and watch and see how things develop. He's ahead of his teammate Senna. It is still Berger in third place but gaining. It is still Piquet in fourth position. Alboreto in fifth place. Nakajima is still sixth. Seventh is Eddie Cheever. Eighth is Derek Warwick. Ninth and leading the 3.5 litre class is Nannini. And 10th is Boutsen. Over the line goes Prost.
Harry, I think Prost might take you to task about him sitting back and waiting. His tactics, I think, to be fair to Prost, have never been guilty of sitting back and waiting. You don't win the World Championship that way. What he does do is, if he makes a bad start or is down the field a bit, he's very patient about awaiting his chance, and he doesn't try and win the race on the first lap, but he certainly always is going flat out. But he's a bit more thoughtful than the others, and of course he is the world's greatest tactician, probably the greatest ever. And we've got two cars off there, and looks like they've had a little tangle.
Yeah, I stand corrected, James. One of them is certainly Cathy in the Dallara as he struggles out of his car, and the little Italian's race is completed. And there's another retirement. That's René Arnoux in the JS31 has just spun off and gets going again. And the rear wing, as you can see, is completely missing. Bernd Schneider out of his first Grand Prix. He qualified for Mexico, but he hasn't lasted very long. 15 laps his race ran, and the Zach speed, I presume the engine's gone.
Another fastest lap for Alain Prost, so Alain Prost very much answering anybody who was stupid enough to write him off as not as good as Senna at this stage, because not only is he setting fastest lap in the race, he's also pulling steadily away from Senna, and Berger really riding those curbs. That was probably a little bit too much, because when you ride it that high, it tends to throw the car, just kicks it a yard offline, and that ends up with a net result that you're actually slower through the corner. And that looks like Patrese being pushed into the pits, so Patrese continues the very unhappy weekend indeed for Williams. It's it has really stretched anybody's memory here to try and compare such a disastrous weekend. It goes back too far for memory that Frank had such a bad weekend.
But there they go, the two Arrows Megatrons in 7th and 8th positions, ahead of the two Benettons that we haven't seen in this race, but are still 9th and 10th, with Alessandro Nannini about as far ahead of his teammate Thierry Boutsen as Eddie Cheever is ahead of Derek Warwick. And on the 22nd lap now, just about 1/3 distance, it's Prost, Senna, Berger, Piquet, Alboreto, Nakajima holding on well in the points in 6th position. And into the pits comes Nigel Mansell, seemingly to fill the Williams Cup of misery to overflowing, because Riccardo Patrese has already retired, and it looks as though Nigel Mansell is going to do just that on lap 23.
Yeah, very much so. He's getting out of the car, so that's the end of the day. And I would suspect a similar problem for the two Williamses, and I suspect their suspension, quite honestly, too much of a coincidence for it to be anything else. That's been their bugbear this weekend. As we look at Nelson Piquet, and you see Alboreto in the background, and he's closing on Nelson, so we may just get a bit of a battle.
As Cheever and Warwick in the reverse order, because now Derek Warwick has got ahead of his teammate Eddie Cheever and is therefore up into 7th position. Derek Warwick, that you are looking at, who has this season already had 2 4th places in Brazil and Monaco, is now pulling away from Cheever, which shows that the American was holding him up, and Derek Warwick is charging for the points. He's 1 place off 6th position at the present moment, round the right-hander where he went off last year, as a result of which the race was stopped on lap 30 to be restarted. Eddie Cheever fighting back, and the race order on lap 27 continues to be Leader Alain Prost, second Ayrton Senna. In third position is Gerhard Berger. Fourth is Piquet, being caught by Michele Alboreto, fifth. Sixth is Satoru Nakajima. Up to seventh has gone Derek Warwick. Down to eighth has gone Cheever. Still ninth and 10th, Thierry Boutsen, as Alessandro Nannini, and in 10th position, Thierry Boutsen. Eddie Cheever, that is. Ahead of the Ligier JS21, 31. Derek Warwick in the Arrows Megatron. The Ross Brawn designed car. Prost, race leader, lap 27. 67 lap race. Well, Prost is millimetre perfect, as he always is. The thinking man's Grand Prix driver, who drives just as much with his head as with his heart. Just look at the way he rockets through that complex of bends. Into the fast right-hand 160-mile-an-hour corner to complete his 28th lap.
And is that Piquet? That's Nakajima. Nakajima pulling off the circuit with quite clearly a very severely blown engine, so that's the end of his day. And I was just grabbing the microphone off Murray, and let's get that far out. Come on, come on, come on. And keep saturating it, because they have a nasty tendency to flare up again if you don't get plenty of foam on it. Anyway, no, I was just looking. Prost's left rear tyre seemed to be a little bit marked up coming through the quick corner. Looking at it now, of course, the other side, but it seemed to have cleaned off again. And of course, you do get a big build-up of heat in the tyres on that very, very long, fast corner, because apart from anything else, it's a bit banked. But the gap, in fact, has come down a tiny bit to Prost, so Senna has pulled back a second. It was at its most a lap or two ago, up to 8.8 seconds. So let's watch, because if Prost hurt any of his tyres, that gap will disappear very quickly indeed.
And on lap 29, with the disappearance of Satoru Nakajima's Lotus-Honda, Derek Warwick moves into the points again this season. Derek has had a couple of disastrous seasons in 1987 with Arrows and in 1986 with Brabham. It's coming good this year. The man who finished in second places when he was with the Renault team, and now with Arrows, he is in sixth place in the Mexican Grand Prix as Alain Prost goes into the right-hander, and now the left at the end of the long start and finish straight, one of the fastest sections in any Grand Prix course in the world. Now Prost is through the right-hander at turn 3. Left and right again. Now shortly into the long straight which leads up to turn 4. And you're looking now at Gerhard Berger sandwiched between the two Arrows of Derek Warwick on the left and Eddie Cheever on the right, who is out of picture just at the moment. Derek Warwick in sixth place has been lapped by both Prost, the leader, and Senna in second place. He's about to be lapped very shortly by the flying Ferrari of Gerhard Berger in third position. Derek, being the racing gentleman that he is, moves over and lets the Ferrari through. Absolutely no point in trying to keep him back, because it's going to happen sooner or later, so you might as well let it happen sooner. And that's the Ferrari pit signal being held out to Gerhard Berger to show him that the gap is 15 seconds. He won't need any urging to go, and Eddie Cheever is now setting about his teammate Derek Warwick. There's Warwick in sixth place, Eddie Cheever in seventh.
Yes, and that was a little bit of a worry. I was a bit worried for Derek Warwick then, because his gentlemanly behaviour when letting Berger through, going into that quick corner, undoubtedly cost him a little bit of time, and Cheever was quick to see that, went through the corner on the proper line at full speed, and very nearly got into a position to attack Derek at the end of the straight. And that would have been a very unfortunate way to lose a place, particularly to his teammate. Remember, of course, that although Grand Prix cars teams run two-car teams, the teammate, your own teammate, is probably your most important rival in the business, because he's the only other guy in the field who's in an identical car. So it's very, very important that you beat him. You may like him, most teammates get on well together, you may, because you have to work together, you exchange information, but when it comes to the race, again, you don't want to push each other off, and neither normally wants to do that. But there is a very, very serious rivalry, and it is very important to each driver personally that he should beat his teammate. So Nelson Piquet getting down towards the last 10 laps of the race, and he's going to have to work very hard to hold on to that fourth place.
And Alboreto's consistently getting that signal, and as they go across the point there, Piquet, it's 2.3 seconds now, the gap between Piquet and Alboreto, with Prost catching the Ferrari.
Yes, I have to say that although the McLaren drivers are encouraged, certainly allowed, and encouraged most of the time to race each other by Ron Dennis, and as a matter of McLaren company policy, and quite right too, there comes a point in the race when Ron Dennis, the boss of the team, has the right to tell them to stop racing each other, and I think at this point that would be a sensible thing to do. It's quite clear that today Prost has won today's battle as far as all bar the shouting and things going wrong, and the way to make things to go wrong, and the same that Senna has a clear second place, and the only thing that, or one of the things that could make things go wrong now is if they continue to race each other. The challenge is gone. Prost has certainly won the battle as far as driving concerned. He's kept that 8-second gap. It's over 8 seconds there on the caption. And I would suggest, certainly if I was in Ron Dennis's position, I would now ask my drivers to ease right up and get the cars nicely to a finish. But if he doesn't, we're the luckier ones, because Prost appears to still be going very quickly indeed.
Yes, that was, and Piquet's in trouble. There's a great haze of smoke coming from the back of the Lotus, and Alboreto is now taking fourth position and has taken it from Nelson Piquet as the Brazilian's Honda engine blows on lap 60, and out of the race goes the world champion. So now we have got Ferrari in third and fourth places. Off comes the steering wheel so that Nelson Piquet can get out of the car, and up to Michele Alboreto, who is in fourth position, comes the dominant McLaren of Alain Prost to lap the man who is fourth. First of all, they banned ground effects, and still the cars went faster. Then they reduced the fuel allowance for the turbo cars, and still they went faster. This year, they have reduced the turbo boost allowance and the fuel allowance, and the turbos are going faster again. Senna was faster in pole position for the Mexican Grand Prix than Nigel Mansell was last year with 4-bar boost. Prost has broken the lap record with 2.5-bar boost. And there is Ayrton Senna just ahead of a Ferrari, but don't think that it's Berger who has caught Senna. It is Alboreto that Senna has lapped. This is lap 65 in this 67-lap race, reduced by 1 lap owing to the aborted start when they actually did started it, and Nannini had trouble with his engine, as a result of which they reduced the race length by 1 lap. And you see now Alain Prost on his 66th lap out of 67. He has only got 2, including the lap he's on now, of these 2.75-mile Mexican Grand Prix laps to go. Between himself and yet another checkered flag, yet another victory to make his 31st, to raise his points total from his existing level of 430.5 to 439.5. It seems that nothing can stop this incredible little Frenchman, He laughingly said, after he had passed Jackie Stewart's record of 27 Grand Prix, I would like to go on until I win 40, but that only happened last year, and now he's on his 31st Grand Prix victory, and if he goes on the way he is going, he's going to win more than 40 before he retires. To retire to concentrate on his promotion business, he's just finished promoting the Formula 3000 Pau Grand Prix, and Alain Prost now goes into his last victory lap, having led the Mexican Grand Prix from the moment the lights turned to green and he entered the first corner. He has, in the process, demonstrated to his teammate Ayrton Senna, of whom many people were saying that he was the man and that Prost was over the hill. Let me hasten to say that I am not one of those people. And Prost is proving that he's very much number one. It's been an absolutely indomitable drive.
Yes, very much so. And yes, I'm afraid, to be absolutely fair, Murray, it was only the mugs who were saying that Prost was beaten before he started. Senna, of course, will run him for his money all the way, and I'm not saying that Senna won't win the championship, because they're very evenly matched, and that's what today's race proved more than anything, because once Prost got the better start, remember, Senna was behind Piquet from right until the end of the first lap, and that little tiny thing, the gap was a couple of seconds when they settled down in 1 and 2, and Prost always had the upper hand, very much like at Imola, where the roles were reversed 2 races ago, when Prost got the bad start and never ever got back on terms with Senna. So Prost takes the checkered flag.
To win the Mexican Grand Prix of 1988 in magnificent style. He'll slow down and stop almost immediately because he's been caught before on the car being underweight as a result of fuel. And there goes Ayrton Senna in the background in second position to finish in only his second Grand Prix of 1988. He won the first one that he finished in at San Marino, but for the third time in 4 races, Ayrton Senna has been beaten by Alain Prost. Victory then for Alain Prost of the Mexican Grand Prix. Second, his teammate Ayrton Senna. In third position, Gerhard Berger in the Ferrari. Both the Ferraris have finished because Alboreto is fourth. Derek Warwick and Eddie Cheever both finish in the points for Arrows, 5th and 6th. Nannini wins the 3.5 litre race in 7th position with Boutsen 8th, Dalmas 9th, and Stefan Johansson a meritorious 10th position after a long, hard drive in the Ligier. Alain Prost has increased his championship lead. He's got 33 points. Berger is still second on 18, but Senna is only 3 points behind the Ferrari driver in third place, and Alboreto is fourth. Needless to say, McLaren have increased even further their massive Constructors Championship lead, 48 points. Ferrari on 27 in second place, and Arrows and Lotus tying with 9 points behind them.
It was difficult to race, even if it looks easy from outside, because Ayrton was pushing hard all the time, and the car was absolutely perfect, no problem, but the tires, I was a little bit afraid with the tires. I did not know if I had to stop or not, because at the first part of the race, tires were not very good, and then it came back better.
Well, Alan simply went faster right from the start. I had a good start, but then I had a problem with the pop-up valve that carried on open for the whole lap. And by the time I got consistent, he had already few seconds, which were very important. From there on, I think he drove very fast and was difficult to keep up with him, especially because here was very hard on the tires, and from one time to the other, suddenly you had some grainy or some blisters. But I think Alan drove very well and deserved this win.
Now for part 1 of our fabulous Silverstone competition. To mark that famous track's 40th anniversary, we're offering 6 winners a VIP day for 2 at the British Grand Prix. But for one special winner, there's a superb first prize of an all-expenses trip to the Australian Grand Prix in Adelaide. Question 1 is about Silverstone, the home of this year's British Grand Prix on July the 10th. These are scenes from its first Grand Prix held in 1948. And what we want to know is, who won it? Well, good luck with part 1 of the Grand Prix competition, and in 2 weeks' time, we'll be showing you part 2 in association with the Canadian Grand Prix, where Ayrton Senna will be desperately trying to beat his teammate, Alain Prost.